a lot, Guy. So we're going to work on the issue of assessing the relevance of procedures. We're going to go around the table to start off. So we talked about relevance. We had a definition from Guy, but preparing this round table, it's not as simple as it sounds. What's behind the word? In our activities, what I suggest is that we go around the table. The idea is to short questions, short answers. Elisabeth, relevance of procedures, what is it for you? First, I think it's too limited to talk about the relevance of procedures, medical procedures. What came out from the previous round tables is that indeed we focus on the medication, on procedures, and we omit the larger, wider issues, which is the whole path that we have to talk about. Something else that was mentioned earlier by Guy, which came from the definition by given by ChatGPT, there are two things that are absent, and that I thought insufficiently mentioned. The fact that there are the patients, and when we look about the relevance of procedures, it's important to involve the patient involved, and sad we didn't mention it, the involvement of the patient. This is how we get easy claps from the audience. And the second thing is also an important element is collegiality. We cannot measure relevance being confronted to yourself only, but is to confront your opinion to those of your colleagues and counterparts that can amend it, alter it, to get to the real relevance. But so, head of the College of Doctors, I will distinguish relevance of with the quality of results, the quality of procedures themselves and the procedures, and I will center it on the choice of procedures. The relevance of procedures is not an obedience. It's not just following of procedures to literally, but the necessity of choice by practitioners in context to be able to carry out and to make the right choices. We talk about relevance in a scientific approach regarding the result that can be expected, regarding the data of science available. Let's not forget three other perspectives: the perspectives of the technical theater and human skills and economic resources available, the societal perspective and the ethical and regulatory framework, and the perspective of the patient. Patient coming with expectations which is to be healed and to feel better, and expectations that are informed. I wish to get this exam, this treatment, in order to feel better and to be healed. And so he has to be, and so we need to look at these four perspectives. And I would balance it out and ponderate that with, we can justify a procedure and defend it in a logical way regarding science and a framework, but there's also the dimension of intelligibility. A relevant procedure, it's within the whole path and a whole framework regarding the patient. We forget also this dimension of relevancy in the whole timeline and the whole story of the patient. And to have a follow-up of all the procedures that's shared. So Alexandre, so you at the head of the French Association of Urologists, what is your reaction? Relevance is excellence to me, is to get to the higher level, so that each patient at the right time, the right treatment with the least adverse side effects possible. And so all the scholarly institutions have a major role to play with the publication of recommendations, of good practices, the good use of medication, and of the theater also. And it should be assessed, it should be evaluated. And scholarly institutions have their role to play. By describing recommendations, they can judge the person and the institutions regarding those recommendations. And so we're full into relevance. We think relevance should be associated with excellence. The objective is to scale up the level, to get to a higher level, to upgrade. So yes, we get back to the patient. in the Urology Association, we included the patients in the recommendation, which the UK did, and not all associations have done. That was a key point in my term. Excellence for and with patients. Patrick, so relevance is the right rationale and logic, the relevance of the use of the referential so that we get to good quality. But relevance has evolved for years. We started 30 years ago when it was the relevance of procedure and not the whole mechanisms, the whole path of the patient. There are multiple evolutions. We went from disease, from acute disease to chronic disease. Territories are different. Innovation, therapeutics. And there's one thing that we talk more and more about is the patient. And it's a good thing. Yeah, it's timely. Remember, we forgot it. And even today we forget it. We tend to forget it. Situations are specific. We won't treat the same way a patient who's disabled, who has certain age, and our personal vision of disability has changed too. Yeah, that's the relevance depends of the vision that we have of the other. And that is an element we should take into account. And that's indispensable if we want the patient to be cooperates. And there's a collective issue too. A collective issue which is sustainability, because relevance, what I heard on our previous roundtables, first two roundtables, we have different notions of relevance, but we have common points. You share common points, but it deserves some hindsight. And what do we mean by relevance? And who are the players? We are fortunate to have Stefanie here, who works in Germany, an equivalent of the higher health authority. Thank you for coming and to give your perspective on what you understand by relevance and how is it organized in Germany.
Thank you for having me here. It's a great pleasure and really an excitement for me. I have to turn that down a little bit. I hear myself very loud. So, okay, my perspective on relevance. I try to make it short for the beginning. First of all, I dealt during my dissertation with relevance of effects in clinical trials, and I think the most important point I get from that is that the English word or the German one, relevance, is composed of or comes from relevare in Latin. That means weighing something. So relevance is not an assessment behind, but in the end you have to deal with separate weighing up different things. So relevance is not really a definition, but I think important for assessing relevance is to have in mind you have always different things, perspectives, aspects of something you have to weigh in the end. So when we want to decide something, if it's relevant or not, you have always to take into account different things. So in coming from Germany, I'm working for the social health insurance security. I have to add, or I have to cite the German law. So it's the Code Book 5 that deals with all of the service and quality assurance of health services. And I have to quote, it says that all services have to be sufficient, appropriate, and economical. And there with these new buzzwords, I have to admit, you see some of the perspective behind relevance. And in the end, the last statement from my side to relevance, I agree absolutely that the patient relevance is enormous important. We are dealing with patients and we try to heal them. So, and of course, weighing up some things mean for me at the IQWiG, when we do reports on benefit, to look only exclusively at patient-relevant endpoints. What is not normal, for example, for the health authorities, like or the decisions to get drugs onto the market. They look at surrogate parameters and not only on patient-relevant endpoints. So this is the emphasis from my side to have good information to weigh things up, and information at least have to be about patient-relevant endpoints.
Merci beaucoup. C'est très intéressant.
Thanks a lot. We're having this whole reflection around the patient, which is a major issue, and it bears the question. You mentioned different words. I looked at synonyms of relevance. When you look in the synonyms, you use the word different words, and it really struck me as appropriateness, appropriate, fair, discernment, suitable. So we see that there's a whole field, discernment, weighing things, and then collective reflection. So I would like us to continue to dig deeper. We talk about individual patients and the whole hierarchy. When we talk about individual, it means that relevance, if it's based only on the patient, we need a holistic approach of the patient, his situation, his sanitary situation, but societal, social situation. So relevance, is it limited? And I saw with Patrick, but you can all react regarding the individual in his health situation? You want to start? Yes. Just a quick word. I would like to react. I don't have the impression that we are here going through our high school exams on philosophical exams. Relevance, whether it's suitable, yeah, okay, sure. But relevance, what do we do with it? We have the patient, we have science, we have... Yes, I'm going to screw your whole round table. I told you. There are choices, and Jean-Claude Grillier was here. There are political. Jean-Claude Grillier was here, and there's politicians. When we look at their funding laws, and you cannot say you have relevance, and from there on, you need scientific elements that need to be taken into account, and it's the case with the DSS and the health insurance system. We look only at the financial perspective, but that's not relevance. This is not what we said. It's not. That's what we said in the previous roundtable, but she wanted to send a message to the previous roundtable. So what did you want to say to the previous roundtable? Relevance is not only under the perspective of the financial perspective, and it's not the financiers that should give the bearing. Prior, upstream, we need reflection, we need works on relevance and choices. And the financial sustainability should be considered. And so, yeah, when I mentioned holistic issue, it's our practice. It's not just philosophical. When I have somebody who has I need to put his foot right. What's his environment? When I have a patient, the issue is here. I think we didn't ask enough the population and groups of the population what is relevance to them. It's relevant in function of the social level, social economic level. Is it the same? No. What should be tomorrow the elements and the tools that will allow us to access to this reflection in our daily reflection and the singular exchange, the singular forum. And so who knows best? The nurse, who knows best So I wanted you... So, okay, so we check that box, okay. And so we realize that, according to the evolution of trades and jobs, that there's a will of different trades to increase, to enhance their skills, and also the care given to patients. And so, to better meet the needs of the patients. It's going to be complicated to get to the level of the patient, to have his satisfaction. I think there's going to be other indicators that will allow us to see the deviance. The doctors do a remarkable job. And some patients, and some doctors, who have practices that are specific, who don't have the good indications for the right patients at the right time. And so this is what we're going to have to look for. But they can do a quality procedure. Sure. Yeah, there's a roundtable on quality. They can do a right procedure, but that's not relevant. Sorry, I cut you in. I'm sorry. So Stefanie wanted to talk.
So I think I have a very special perspective, and I try to sort something. So IQWiG in Germany is just responsible for preparing benefit assessment, or not just, but so we are on the system level. We are doing the reports to help decide a special federal committee to decide in the end what is paid. So this is one portion where we have to talk about relevance. And then we had the other part already. This is the quality assurance in the field, in practice. And in Germany, we have a different scientific institute again for that. So the point what I want to make is, in Germany, we have a self-governed committee of doctors, insurance funds, and hospitals who decide what is going into the catalog of procedures and how it's paid. And we have two scientific institutes. So it's the IQWiG, the Institute for Quality and Efficiency in Healthcare, and it's the second one, the IQWiG. It's the Institute for Quality Assurance and Transparency. And the second one, this institute, takes care about quality indicators to give the committee advice about quality assurance, or to level up the quality.
Un peu comme la HAS en France.
HAS, I think, does both. Yeah. So, and we, IQWiG, just do the reports about benefit, quite abstract perhaps. So we only deal with clinical studies and trial, and try to work out the facts, the patient-relevant benefit, and then this is the other institute. So my expertise is the IQWiG, not the IQWiG, the quality assurance. But as far as I know, the IQWiG was founded 10 years after the IQWiG. So IQWiG, we are 20 years old now. They are 10 years. And the IQWiG is not well known. The IQWiG a little bit more. We work together with HAS. We have the EU project in front. But the IQWiG is not well known, is also in Germany not well known. And the quality indicators they propose to the committee, from my point of view personally, it's hard work to install it. There's much resistance in the field to deal with these indicators. Perhaps this joint committee is not the best committee to fight about these things. And in the end, we already had, I just want to describe it shortly, the data problem. So, yeah.
Et on revient à ce qu'on évoquait dans la dernière.
What we mentioned in the previous roundtable, there's a resistance on the issue of quality. And so the approach through relevance, because isn't it an approach that makes more sense, on which we can integrate the whole community of caregivers, because we do it with patients. What do you think? I think that we shouldn't oppose perspectives and approaches. We cannot do your job as a professional on your own. You need to have a pluridisciplinary approach. And when you look at relevance assessment, you cannot do the economy of looking at other perspectives, looking at practitioners, and the relation with the patient. We have to walk on these 2 feet, on this two-pronged approach. And regarding, we talked about patient satisfaction. There's a need for the singular forum approach. This assessment of relevance shouldn't be versed into the emotional aspect of satisfaction, where you just give you a quick review, but you have to follow a proper method. And we need to have tools to ease this assessment on this very closed-off approach of medical practices. And so from the perspective of urologist, how can you build this with your teams? So we have recommendations that we spread. We have training committees, and training congresses to reassess our practices, and we have surveys regarding the integration of recommendations in our practice. So to assess the relevance of procedures is more complex. When we look at the scale of the patient, is he satisfied to the one who pays, so the healthcare funds, it's very broad. We don't have a tool that allows us to have this wide array. So we have to choose some indicators. If you do carry out this procedure with a certain rate of complication, with patients that get out of the hospital fast, it means the care is correct. But you should integrate two other elements at the individual level, and that's going to be complicated to get to, and the payer. So here you talk about the whole path. It goes back to what Elisabeth said, the path, the assessment of the relevance of the procedure. But is it just a procedure, or is it this whole follow-up of the path of the patient? At what point where do we set this reflection of relevance to move forward collectively on this? I think in our reasoning, in our rationale, we rest upon what we already know, and in your practice, in your medical practice, professional practice, to have a reflection is good, but we tend to be closed off. And I think today you have to think broadly. And it's true that, and we were joking about the fact that Patrick said the HAD word, this place to resort to different forms of care, different offers of care, whether it's outpatient, inpatient, and hospital stay. We're always going to need the hospital in its wider sense. But do we still need as much this idea of having the right path for a patient to have care in a context? And we're going to repeat it, that today, which is we have situations that are much more complex than before. Today, we're going to have to treat a patient for a neurological issue, but this patient has adverse effect from a stroke. He has a chronic disease. He has a likelihood of having another Y disease. And so if you don't look in a broad approach, we won't make the right decisions. And evidently, let's kind of put some humor on these important issues. You should differentiate relevance and quality. When today we work with unicancer to basically many patients which are in outpatient care and can go home for home care for chemotherapy, it's not an issue of looking at the issue of quality. Even if you look at quality, maybe we're going to think it's better to stay in outpatient care rather than hospital care. But relevance in a broader sense, even taking into account the patient's perspective and in a context of a broader approach for this patient, following his whole path, and territorial elements, when you're not, and moving people 10 minutes, it's not a catastrophe, but an hour and a half drive, wait 2 hours, and go back and take the whole day. It really you ask yourself, what is the right question? And so we should recognize we're in a role play. Thomas Fatoum said he feels alone on these issues of relevance. No, he's not alone. You should read all the mail that I sent him. He's not alone. The second direct message. Let's stop. We're in a kind of role play, and we think relevance is too serious of an issue to be undermined. The financial aspect is important, and the way we are approaching it seems more positive than what we really hear on the issue. I think the IT tools will help us assess relevance. How do we assess it? We're going to get back to it. I asked the question of who. The how we'll see after, but the who. We look into this first part, listening to you, the assessment of the relevance is good, but what counts is this path and this procedure in this globality. relevance, as you said, it should be in the holistic approach of the individual, but with a societal relevance. By preparing, we thought certain procedures are not relevant, which are not good for an 80-year-old, but for society it's not relevant. That's why I think that the population reflection and populational responsibility of the patient tomorrow is important. How do we build it? How? And we talked before about that. It's the role of the general practitioner, his responsibility to give the good care in the good context. That the team is going to refer him to this or that specialists for a specific care. So the quality is intrinsically attached to the job, the trade. So I think we need training, we need education. Tomorrow, we hope certification and not recertification, because up until now we haven't been certified. We need to commit to this assessment and this daily assessment. And so after that, I think that it should be built together. Stefanie, and then I'll give you the floor again on who can assess, because we can see this general framing. When we said that, but you're going to have to, who's going to assess? Stefanie, you want to react?
Pose a question, because you just talked about teaching and learning to get the processes right. I wanted to know, how is your experience with clinical guidance in France? Because IQWiG also has the responsibility to aid the specialists to write them. And to be honest, in Germany, it looks like the specialists themselves, they do not have the time, sometimes not the scientific expertise to write down these guidances. And I think they should be an important tool to get the quality where it should be.
Oui, qui commence? Emmanuel?
Alexandre, you want to go ahead? It's very important that we have clear recommendations, and they are widely spread. And the doctors should really make them appropriate themselves, this French know-how. But at the level of doctors, we should really stick to those recommendations. And the evolution of medicine, the recommendations that were updated 10 years ago, every 5 years, now it's every year that they're updated, and we check through interactions, through surveys, that the doctors, and at least in our association, that they're well carried out and implemented. Urology is maybe specific, but that's not what is being done in all specialties. Medical time, the time of training, clearly, many of our colleagues have little time to train themselves. Well, we know the figures. I wouldn't want to remind them here, but eventually 30–40% of our colleagues who continue to get annual training, and so it's very, very, very low. So at least we hope certification tomorrow will be an element that is a structural element of the quality of the care given to patients and of medical procedures. So here we talk about doctors or collective. The reflection on relevance is all of the health professionals that work on a specific theme. When we talk about trainings, it's good for the doctors, but if you don't do it collectively on these evolutions, it won't work. So we have to rethink the way in which we accompany the collective in its progress and adaptation to science. It starts in university. The levers available to improve this relevance, we talk about recommendations. It's unavoidable. We talk about training. And there was a paper from the IRDES that intended a synthesis on the levers available. Each had their own limitations. They had financial incentives and targeted actions. I believe a lot in in setting up efficient levers, efficient tools. We are all intention today, and access to recommendations. We don't, as practitioner, you're not going to go read all the recommendations. Each time they publish one, it's very hard to demand that. And so we need to access when we need to the recommendations, when it's needed. There's a lot of tools to set up to allow to improve this relevance. So who has to assess? Just so that we agree, we said we have recommendations regarding a procedure and a situation, but that's an analytical vision. It's not a holistic vision. So for prostate cancer, there's X ways of treating it. And so all the issue of this recommendation in its holistic dimension. So who should assess? I think first and foremost, we need wanting to assess relevance is like assessing happiness. We're going to look at only we're going to have a tiny view of it, and the solution is going to be in a cross vision. You need a societal approach with an independent institution. I think the HAS, the High Health Authority, is well placed to do that. And there's also a need from an assessment which is more local, more closer. We have methods that are in place on our relevance reviews. And I get back to it, many tools to develop, to improve that. So the main language on who should give the reference to assess, and we think about science, and there's many things to improve on the content of our recommendations, the way science is present in our recommendations. What do you mean by that? We make a mistake for many years to consider that science is a truth and not an argument. And in the recommendations, the truth presented as such, or the consensus, and one truth is presented. And we feel that there's a barrier to allow yourself to give in the recommendation many different ways of doing things. And we should observe that. We put aside people who are unskilled and who cannot assess scientific literature, but you can clearly observe that on the state of science today, you can have different interpretations by people who are competent and skilled in good faith. And why? I'm going to take the example of electrocardiograms. In the sports certificates, you have cardiologists looking at the level of science. We should carry out electrocardiogram every 3 years and then every 5 years for this age group. And the specialists say, yeah, but you have to weigh in the increase of heart condition, and so to which we're going to prevent practicing sports. And these two different interpretations of data sciences, of scientific data, in our recommendations, you can have just two readings possible, and we're not going to find a middle ground. With the patients, we're going to pick between those two readings. With the patients. Yeah, of course, with the patient. You need to expose, you have to weigh the pros and cons. Another aspect of science and recommendations, we have a lot of scientific data. We look about path, long time. When you look at reference, many times historically you would say when you're not skilled, you would refer the patient to a specialist. And that was the practice. It's not confessing to a failure, but it's necessary because it's the role of the colleague, and we need to have science present in those paths. We need science on the whole societal aspect. On work accidents, we don't have many things. There's a lot of lack of data, scientific data, and there's a lot of science. We talk about waste. We talk about waste of overconsumption. I think there's a waste by emission. When people have work leaves, in the prevention aspect, we need to improve. If we let things happen, we're going to have to pick up the pieces after. And so we need science all along the path, and looking at the doctor's initiative in the whole care process. So it's not something that should be imposed. So it strikes me that in many seconds you use the word science. I'm sorry to say, but if the use of the word is not an alibi, not an excuse, and so you corrected yourself well, you said at some point we should eventually have two types of solutions. That means science should be contextualized. And in reality, it's something we said for a while, and I repeat myself, and I'm going to get to your question on who. Precisely, we should have this element of precise, accurate, contextualize it, and in the who, it's imperative that professionals, broadly speaking, not just doctors, but brought into other professionals, should be included in the assessment. And in with many specialties and practices, scholarly institutions are very important to show the path, to give a direction. And so after, I would like to, at the territorial level, and this is what's at stake with the PTS, that collectively the practices and the mechanisms are better contextualized, and we have this approach of exchange. Look, the scientific data gives us this direction, steers us in that way, but we should contextualize it and look at people. People are 95, people are 87, and we should rather do this than that. And this is where I think that today we don't ask ourselves enough the questions of organizations and different people, I'm sorry to say, and the funding players in a broad sense only look through the filter of the cost. And if it's just that, let's at least, I repeat, resort to the hospital. Why controlling doctors are going to come tomorrow, and some of them generally have never practiced medicine, are going to come to tell me, this patient, he's 85 years old, he has this and that condition. This is not home care that's appropriate, because it doesn't fit into the right framework. Why should I be told that, and at the same time, and if he's not at home, where is he going to be? At the hospital. And we don't ask ourselves the question because it's too complicated, it's too heavy. We cannot reason in this fashion anymore. And what was presented in the previous roundtable on this populational approach, and this reflection of the relevance in populational territorial approaches, is probably a good track. We should work on collectively, probably, because at the territorial aspect, we have all the players involved, and the main player, that we talk very little of the patient. We talk a lot. It's a piece of art. Yes, I agree with you. It often, at some point, society has to say, it's the society, it's not the politician, the most important. It's a societal reflection. And at some point, we should ask society at large. I'm going to do some provocation here. On the gynecology, relevance in gynecology of care for deliveries is to do the least C-sections possible. Did we ask women if they wanted C-sections or they wanted natural delivery? I don't think so. Where's relevance? Relevance for some, maybe, will tell us, maybe that's this, that. It's a choice. And if this choice, societal choice, is sustainable for collectively, because at some point, sustainability is going to be important. I would like to say, I didn't want to go on the same approach as Elisabeth, because we have a convention tomorrow. You told me that I should tell it. So to help us, you can see that this assessment, the players, is complex. We see the role of patients and the collective of patients, and how this collective is able to, and this reflection of societal relevance. So it's what is this place of data? You mentioned that data tomorrow. So data on quality, we can assess, okay, if I have medical devices, or I can assess their quality, but on the relevance, Do we think that tomorrow data is going to be one of the tools that will give us, will help us assess relevance, or a tool that will allow us to build our notion of relevance? Yes, I'm convinced of that. Big data are accessible to have simple answers. Rate of complications, day of stay, duration of stay, are they going to be linked to many, many other new indicators in the future to assess relevance of care? And to develop at the French Association of Urology applications that are linked to these databases. A patient is going to be operated. We're going to give him access to an app that will allow us to follow the patient after surgery or treatment, and to have his own perspective and perception. And he can also say what he thinks. So we're going to have this mass of data that will give us even more information on relevance of care. On data.
Opinion
Oui.
regarding that.
Et comment c'est utilisé en Allemagne?
And how they're used in Germany to help you.
I think the last 2 hours, when there were some comparisons between France, perhaps not good in data usage, and different countries better, you never heard Germany. So we have a huge problem with the data in Germany with digitalization. At the moment, we don't have data in the routine care to use really for relevance assessment. So it depends on what we're talking about, but we prepared a report on how to generate data from the routine care to use for benefit assessment, and our conclusion was we need perhaps registry because all other data sources are not of use. They can't be merged, data are missing, data quality is very low, so perhaps registry can help us, and we have to, again, quality, we get the quality high, what is documented. So at the moment, we don't have the data. And I think you mentioned science a lot. So from my point, science should deal with the data and come to a conclusion, to information, to give it to those who decide. It's not science who says you have to do it like that. It's just to present the data in a way people who have to decide they can inform. They are informed and can understand really. So we talked about patients. It's an own part of science to prepare information that can be understood by patients. So we have own projects on that. So there are a lot of parts where science is necessary. I agree on that. But regarding the data, really these big data, for example, at the moment, from my point of view, it's we would be happy if we have the data, the transparency data coming from the industry to do our benefit assessment, and we're still struggling with that.
Germany has a little advance because they understood better that they should centralize care. And for surgery, the big surgery are done in only some centers, and they got rid of all small centers. So we talked.
We have this volume outcome reports IQWiG is preparing, and we were just short before skipping that rules. We have it indeed now again, so there's a law again to keep them, but to install these minimum volumes in the hospital, it's a fight. It's politics.
It's politics.
And it's one problem in Germany we have this federal structure. Yeah. So every federal state has to take care of the own hospitals. So.
Parce que finalement on arrive au point.
So we get to an important point where we all have all this data, we know what's good, what is well done, what is not well done, but we had to get to the next step, a political decision to say we gather surgery in this place, and these doctors are borderline, we're going to have to halt them. But quality is the relevance. We can have a very ethical, philosophical approach. But relevance is broader and includes the individual and society and the individual. On the database, I think the emergence of all these online appointments and referral, and there's a great mine here of data available, and I hope we can benefit from that to improve care. and procedures. And up until now, we only had one vision.
All these data, they are just lying somewhere and can't be merged.
Ouais. Mais si on peut les croiser avec ce qu'il y a dans les...
If you can merge them with medical records of who took the appointment, is it the patient, and the prioritization of referrals is a major issue and stake. Just simply on data, the use of this data has to go downstream on the ground, and today we're far from that. And professionals have trouble to access them because they don't see the interest. And I see the interest, and there's a roundtable that will talk about this of artificial intelligence. And artificial intelligence in our daily care can be useful. Just to go to your point on what you said, and I think the way this data goes downstream is only punitive. Extracting the data should be also positive. The way if it's only punitive, if it's punitive, you're going to be rebellious and reluctant to use the data. If we talk about this collective, we build a collective decision with the patient. The data have to help us in the questioning. On your practices, this should give us ideas, and I think tomorrow, artificial intelligence on one situation, what are the therapeutic solution? I do a lot of pluridisciplinary consultations. For one patient, there's X solutions, these N solutions. How do I find relevance? How am I going to build my decision? The data allow us to have a proper approach. Just to conclude, one word, relevance. Today, where will be relevance tomorrow? Today's relevance, don't we put into question therapeutic choices in 10 years? What is this dynamic? It's a real question. It's a real issue. In the science of tomorrow, don't we take a risk and miss a chance that we will regret in 10 years? I think it will be more reactive. I believe a lot in AI regarding the enormous databases that we have and applications that will put patients at the center of the debate. Just one thing, I think that we'll master better things and this idea of relevance, this issue of relevance, if it's taking into a confrontational approach, humility and humanity. The idea is to move up, to upgrade. We don't have certainties today. So let's assess. We have to assess. And discernment. One of the synonym. Thank you, it's finished. Thanks a lot.